Welcome to the broadcast, everybody. Splendid to see you. Let's get jiggy with it. I'm so excited to see the new emblem for the coronation that's been unveiled. Did you catch it? What did you think? I think it's absolutely beautiful. Glorious. You know, it's rare that something comes along where I can't find something to criticise and moan about. But with regards to this emblem, I think it is so beautiful. It's entirely composed of elements from the natural world, and the design features the rose of England, the thistle of Scotland, the daffodil of Wales, the shamrock of Northern Ireland, and it pays tribute to the King's love of the natural world, and I think it's rather exquisite. And together, the flowers you see there create the shape of the St Edward's crown, with which Charles will be crowned, of course. And it was created by Sir Johnny Ive, who said it speaks to the happy optimism of spring and celebrates this new Carolean era for the United Kingdom. And you can see several colourways there, which always take my fancy. I love to see the different colourways that are presented, and it's done in Welsh as well. There's versions to appease those who speak in the beautiful language of the Welsh, but so charming to see. I think they've done a really splendid job there. It's so royal, and it's also so very Charles, isn't it? There was a lovely little moment this week with Catherine where she caught sight of an old tutor of hers. It was her teacher from primary school, her history teacher, and he sort of approached her, and she saw him coming through the crowd and sort of leapt out with joy and gave him a hug. And I'm sure people are thinking that she's giving all these hugs at the moment in response to the criticism she took in spare for being so cold and icy. Well, any regular follower of the royal family and of Catherine herself will know that she's always been not backwards in coming forwards with a tactile touch, with hugs. This has been going on ever since she became associated with the royal family. People just notice it now because it's been brought to the fore by her vulgar relatives. But in fact, she hasn't changed her style. She's not trying to demonstrate anything like some quarters of the press are picking out. It's actually always been that way. She's always had a very warm side to her. She's just classy, and she doesn't wear these sort of diversions on her sleeve. Anyway, the tutor was thrilled to see her, this old teacher, Jim Embry, and said that she was a fantastic student. That's how he remembers her. And they were reunited this first time since she left that primary school, and Catherine was absolutely delighted. She was in Cornwall with William for their first joint official visit to Cornwall since assuming the roles of the Duke and Duchess of Cornwall. They spent time at the National Maritime Museum in Cornwall, actually in Falmouth, the home of maritime history and an educational hub, transferring skills and knowledge between generations. And actually they look like they were wearing the Coronation palette themselves, don't they? A little bit in blue and red there, if that comes under red, under a brown coat as well, but lovely in blue and red, so royal and very British too. There was some controversy due to a blank paper protester, some tyke in the crowd there holding up a blank piece of paper by way of protest. And apparently he was escorted away by a police presence there, but then he shuffled back onto the scene with a few more cries of, "It's the 21st century and we don't want a monarchy anymore. It's," I won't say the word, but he said it's trucking ridiculous. I'm sure you can understand what I mean, dear. Well, speak for yourself, my dear. I'm sure there are many out there who don't, but there are many out there who do, and I would wager the majority do want a monarchy, so... And, my dear, constitutional monarchy is widely regarded as the best form of government in the world. Look into it. Look into it. Although I do commend this gentleman for protesting peacefully, not hurling eggs or any other sort of substance at the Prince and Princess of Wales. People should have the right to protest. And as I've said before, one of the most powerful forms of protest, for example, at a funeral, which I think is as dignified as any kind of way, if you want to show your protest, is to turn your back. That is how I suggested showing protest to the Duke and Duchess of Sussex. And Catherine really got into the spirit of things, didn't she, with a turn of the old hokey-cokey. I'm not sure if countries abroad are familiar with the hokey cokey, but for those of us in the kingdom here, it's one of our most widely known anthems, I suppose you could say. Usually seen at celebrations and Christmas parties and birthday parties, this, that and the 10th. Now, before we go on, I just want to clear something up, because in the last broadcast I revealed, when I was speaking about Harry losing his virginity to Sasha Walpole in a field at the back of the pub, I mentioned that I lost mine in similar circumstances, but at the bungalow in Santa Monica with an Eskimo. And I didn't mean for it to be quite so hilarious, but also a few of you misunderstood. I didn't say that I lost it in a bungalow in Santa Monica, but the bungalow, which is a clubhouse bar sort of thing. I only went there the once. It was a private party in Santa Monica. Yes, in the ladies' loos. I did. Sam Mickens says, you have an uncanny knack for making me laugh out loud, unexpectedly out of nowhere. Particularly because I admit that I watch and listen to you with my eyes askance and my nose in the air. I'm Team Harkle. Oh, we have a sugar here, my dears. I believe that's what they're known as, isn't it? I don't use that word sugar, at least not in any recent broadcasts, because I find it too divisive, all this sugar nonsense. As we can see, we can all get along if we show a bit of respect, can't we? Just like Sam Mickens is doing here. But Sam, he or she, says, I'm Team Harkle. I am, but I like your sense of fairness towards them. Well, thank you, my dear. I try. But more than that, you have this capacity, which I love, to tickle the hell out of my funny bone. Today, it was the bit about how you lost your V in the toilets at Santa Monica. Well, I'm glad you found a little bit of fun there, my dear. And Gina Keverin said, I lost my virginity to an Eskimo too. And Heel Grow Love Community said, a bungalow in Santa Monica. No, the bungalow. The bungalow in Santa Monica with an Eskimo. I snorted and choked on my tea. To spend a night in a pub with you, River, it would be a joy. Well, thank you. Mandy Moore says, wait, what? You lost it to an Eskimo. Please, please tell me. I'm dying laughing. What's so funny? This is the thing I don't understand. It's just like saying, I lost it to an Italian, I lost it to a French geezer, I lost it to an Eskimo. I don't understand really where the humour comes in. But my boyfriend is a literal Eskimo. Well, is there any other kind, my dear? I want to hear the story. And I should say here, by the way, that I understand that the word Eskimo is out of fashion and it's said to have colonial undertones now, so it can be offensive to people. And so I am aware that the words that should be used are Inuit or Yupik people, but the reason I use the word Eskimo is because that's how this chap described himself. That's how he described himself. And I was going to say I don't remember his name. I don't think I even asked his name, my dear. It was very quick. It was very similar to that encounter that Harry and Sasha Walpole had in the field, in that, And so I was in heels and a black mini dress. And yes, it was during a cigarette break, actually, because I have a sort of outside grove area. And I was there, and this gentleman approached me, and I didn't know his heritage at the time, my dear. It was indeterminate. He was very smartly dressed, actually, businessman. Very cute, very cute. And yes, he approached me and asked for a light, and I knew immediately what he was after because he was devouring me with his eyes. And yes, I was extremely drunk, I have to say. We were celebrating. It was less than 5 minutes later, really, my dear, where the moment of passion struck. He made the invitation. And the moment of passion struck, and I gave him my flower, my dear, so no. Mandy continues, I honestly want to know what kind of Eskimo was he? My boyfriend's half Yupik, Alaskan, and he's a handsome man. Come on, River, we want stories. Well, I didn't ask what tribe he was, my dear, to be quite honest with you. If tribe's the right word, I don't know. I didn't ask these things, All I remember is that during the initial chat and the initial introduction, he asked where I was from. I said London. I asked where he was from. And no, he didn't accuse me of doing a Susan Hussey. How dare you? I think I actually asked him if he was Canadian, because I thought I could hear a Canadian twang. He said, well, actually, I'm Eskimo. And I just smiled and left it at that, my dear. I don't really care where he was from, only where he was going. Kate Gagnon says, where does the term porky pies come from? I've only heard it used by Brits and Samantha Markle. Yes, some of you might have heard this expression pop up in the headlines with relation to Harry and all of his porky pies. Well, actually, you would normally just say porkies. You're telling porkies. You're telling fibs. Just means you're telling lies, my dear. It's Cockney rhyming slang. Pork pies rhymes with lies. So, in Cockney rhyming slang, you just abbreviate porky pies to porkies. You're telling porkies, my dear. And then the receiver knows that you mean porkies, porky pies, pork pies, lies. You see, it's a sort of Russian doll affair. Stephanie Gilcher says, I have a question. You use the word Schtum, correct? I'm German and never heard anyone saying Schtum in Britain. Well, I believe in Germany Schtum means silence, doesn't it? Actually, I'm familiar with the spelling Schtum, Schtum, which is what I was trying to say. Or it can be said with a double O. And it just means keep Schtum means keep silent, keep quiet, keep it to yourself. You know, let's keep it Schtum. And actually it is very widely used here in the kingdom. Yes, it is, my dear. And yes, etymologically, apparently it does come from Germany via the Jewish community because it was introduced into Yiddish from Germany. So Schtum became Schtum and was adopted by many of us in the nation who were influenced by that Yiddish. And actually, when I looked it up online, there was a dictionary entry, and one of the examples they give is, she is staying Schtum on whether she's attending the royal wedding or not. Birthday greetings to August Brookbank, who turned 2 years old this week, and Princess usually took to Instagram and said, happy second birthday to our boy, Augie. You are our world's greatest joy. Keep daring and smiling, my angel. Well, he's 2 years old, so we can't read it, my dear. No offence. You'll have to excuse me for a few moments, my dear. I know that many of you love this kind of thing, birthday greetings. And there is the royal interest there, so I get it, although he's not a working royal, so I don't get it. But I'm afraid I just find birthday greetings on social media vulgar. You can call me old-fashioned, you can call me a sourpuss, because I am both of those things. So, you know, each to their own. I'm sure many of you do it, to your kids and grandkids, whatever. Trumpeting it from the rooftops, your pride. I'm afraid I just find it tacky. But that's the way the world's going. And aren't we witnessing wonderful generations coming up? And poor Hughes, of course, she took some flack for this because of the resemblance between Augie and both Archie and Lilibet. I mean, surprise, surprise, they're cousins. Aren't most cousins destined to look somewhat alike? I know that some of mine look like some of me. Some of the comments there said, he looks like Archie. Did Harry and Meghan use him as Archie? The conspiracy theorists were out in force. Walks and runs just like the kid they claim is Archie. Yes, it does look like the same kid as they claim is Lily. You are in cahoots with the wrong Windsor, usually. Will your new baby be identical to another kid in 2 years? Well, I'm giving those views an airing. Some people want to believe that. Do I? No, I certainly don't. I don't believe there's any truth to it. But that's what some people, they're the conclusions that some people have come to. That's their prerogative. In the previous broadcast, we looked at King Charles's sock with the hole in it when he visited the mosque recently last week, which was quite endearing, wasn't it? And T-Dub says, I worked for a very wealthy British family, and when I found a hole in the husband's jumper one day and showed him, he said, don't throw it out, it's my favourite. And so it got darned, bless him. And yes, well, this is absolutely the aristocratic way. And as I said, in our world, it's very much a case of make, do, and mend. It's very much a case of buy the best quality you could afford and then wear it to death. Wear it to death, and I'm talking for decades, for a lifetime. You know, there are cashmere jumpers in my family that go back to the reign of Victoria, probably, you know, a very long time. And I've seen on many occasions And I'm thinking of one particular lovable couple, in particular, a baron and a baroness, who both have interesting, rather eccentric taste in clothing, shall we say. I've seen them turn up to a dinner table in threadbare clothes, and also a duchess turn up to dinner. Rather a fine dining gourmet experience, actually, but turn up in a threadbare jacket. It was half hanging off at the hems around here, and also holes round about the elbows. No attempt at darning. No attempt. We're talking about someone extremely highfalutin here, my dear. And it was one of those jackets, like, I don't think it was a Chanel number, but like a Chanel twin set kind of, one of those kind of jackets. Falling apart at the seams it was. But looked absolutely charming, looked like a second skin. And she had absolutely no intention of doing anything with it other than wearing it to death. So, yeah, I thought that was worth mentioning. That is the way. And as long as the garment is of great quality, then it's a make, do and mend attitude. And these garments are loved to death. And you'll always see examples of this with Charles. I think we've looked at a few before. As you can see here, for example, on this grey suit. Can you see down there on the right-hand side towards the bottom, where it's been patched up and there's absolutely no shame in it, no embarrassment from Charles. He's absolutely proud and confident to push his recycling credentials out there, but it's more than just a fad. He's always been that way, and it's always been the royal way as well. And look at this fabulous coat. I absolutely love this. What I wouldn't give for that. Well, these photographs are taken 13 years apart. Look at the pockets there. Look at the way they've been all darned up. Adds rather a charm to it, doesn't it? He doesn't want to waste that coat. And there's patches all over this one that you can see there. And even his shoes, the leather all gets patched up there and reused again. So he's setting a fabulous example. The King visited the newly renovated museum, Leighton House, to hear about the artistic partnership with the charity that he helped found in 2006, Turquoise Mountain. This is to preserve and develop traditional craft practices across Afghanistan, Myanmar and the Middle East. Leighton House is the former home and studio of the Victorian artist Lord Leighton, and Turquoise Mountain, which was established by Charles in his role as the Prince of Wales, works to protect heritage and communities at risk around the world. This is the kind of stuff that goes totally under the radar and for which he is totally unsung, largely unsung. You don't hear about it. It actually saddens me that in Spare, Harry's tone, that he paid so little, if any, lip service to Charles's achievements with regards to this kind of thing. It wouldn't have hurt him, would it? For a bit of balance, to illustrate to the wider world the wonderful enterprises and charities that Charles has not just been involved with, but has founded, has initiated, has nurtured over many years. I mean, and they're endless, This is the first time, really, that I've come across this Turquoise Mountain thing. I hadn't looked into it before, heard about it, and then you hear about it and you think, wow. It's restored over 150 historic buildings, trained thousands of artisans and builders, treated 165,000 patients at their clinic in Kabul, supported and generated over $17 million in sales of traditional crafts to international clients. Who else is doing this? Who else is doing this? Which other head of state? For such a long time. You did make me giggle with some of your comments with regards to Prince Harry's so-called peachy bum, as termed by Sasha Walpole. Well, I objected to that. I'm sure it's a perfectly average, mediocre pair of buttocks, but I object to it being called peachy. It's not something I'd want to get my teeth into. Anyway, Joe Romeo said, River, I assumed peachy was a reference to the colour of his bum. You are so fruity in the comments, you really are. But I can't complain because that's exactly what I asked for, isn't it? Fruitiness and juicy comments. Nix Bellatrix says, River, by peachy. Sasha Walpole meant that Harry had hairy buttocks. Not that it was shaped like one. Laughing emoji, laughing emoji, laughing emoji. Ellen Lyons, or Lyons, says Sasha doesn't seem impressed by his performance. 5 minutes. What was it? Oh, I can't read my writing again. 5 minute wonder. Well, that's like my Eskimo or my Inuit, or what is it? My Inuit friend. I mean, that was 5 minutes or less, my dear. But to be honest, that suited the occasion. Anything longer and more drawn out was unnecessary. I was just standing there in my heels. He was doing all the work, my dear, going for it while I gave him my flower. So, it didn't really need any longer than that. Sometimes a quick session is actually preferable to some long drawn out affair, isn't it? Not saying that doesn't have its place, but sometimes when the occasion demands it. And particularly, I think in Harry and Sasha's case, when it was al fresco, and you're under the elements, you kind of take the moment, and the excitement and Harry's inexperience, I'm sure, all added to the rapidity of the Congress. I digress. She doesn't seem impressed by his performance. 5 minute wonder. It would appear that Harry, the hose, wasn't hot to trot. And many of you have commented on the fact that he described her as an older woman, which I started getting onto the topic in the last broadcast, but then I digressed off somewhere else. But yes, of course, I mean, that's been widely noted that Harry made such a meal out of, via J.R. Moehringer, made such a meal out of this older woman encounter. I mean, fair enough, he was a student, but there was still only a couple of years between them. That really stretches the imagination, because he puts a sort of image in everyone's mind of some 40, 50-year-old cougar out there, putting this young stud, this young steed to work. I mean, please. It was two chums in a pub. And you may have seen that over the last couple of days, Sasha Walpole has sat down and spoke with Piers Morgan, and he can be infuriating in his interviews, can't he? I know you either like him or hate him. Most of the time he really gets on my nerves with his bombastic style, but he was very good with her, I thought. Although the one question he didn't ask, which I would have got in there and asked more juicy questions, but it's the way you put it. He was trying at points, but she was very clever, and I think wary of a legal standpoint, because she'd signed non-disclosure forms as a member of staff at Highgrove, so she had to keep Schtum on certain topics, such as the king, although she was very complimentary about Charles and said that she'd really enjoyed working for him and that he was great. She is a monarchist, she's a royalist, she loves them all, and doesn't think that Harry's quite the man that she knew then, but everybody evolves or changes or worsens, don't they? She managed to do it respectfully to all sides, and still kept some cards close to her chest while also being candid. She really carried it off with aplomb. But what I would have tried to get out of her is whether or not protection was used, because he could have put it to her rather cheekily and just said, and just hit her with it and just said, were you worried at all, by the way, that you could have been pregnant? And seen what her reaction was to that. And she might have been too savvy to point in one direction or the other by saying, oh no, because I knew that wasn't a possibility, maybe because he withdrew from the occasion, shall we say, prematurely, or there was a sheath involved, just to see what she would have come up with, how she would have parried that question. Might have been rather revealing, because spilling the royal seed. It's a horrid image. Sorry to conjure up that image, my dear, especially coming from that frostbitten pinky. We don't really want to think about I don't want to. It's giving me the EBGBs. But these are important questions. And it would be spilling the royal seed carries with it some sort of responsibility, doesn't it? Wherever that damp patch was left behind, whether it was on the field, on the grass, or a patch on her bloomers, wherever it was, my dear, that carried the royal DNA. That puddle contained the potential germ the potential for life of a human that would have been in the line of succession. So it's important where these things end up, my dear. Ray Rod says, can you imagine if this woman had decided, I'm going to make money for this, and had revealed and embellished the details of their encounter just a few days before Harry's wedding? She could very well have done it. It was her story too, yet she didn't, because she has more dignity and more class than a man who was born a prince. Yes, well, there were a couple of moments in the interview where I sort of sensed that it had, that she'd toyed with the idea of it in the past. And this was only my intimation from what she said, my impression. I did feel that there were times where she might have played with the idea of revealing something to the press to give full dues. But she didn't. The proof of the pudding is in the eating. She didn't at the end of the day. I wouldn't necessarily have blamed her if she did over the last few years, but it speaks volumes to her character that she didn't. And exactly as you say, during this time of the wedding, I mean, she really was, as I said, she was sitting on a gold mine. I mean, we are talking mega bucks. The interest is huge. The interest is absolutely huge in the royal family. And for 21 years, while she's out there digging, and she says she loves and relishes her job. It's so refreshing. She's a digger. And as some of you have said, not a gold digger like Rachel Magdalen. She is an actual digger, my dear. She digs dirt for a living. And she's pure as that dirt. Works for her father as a digger, and she loves that work. She says she loves it, so she does. She's sort of the earth, from the earth, horses, dirt, muck. Gets down there, my dear. Our Sasha Walpole. And, yes, a woman of staunch character, as Little Edie would say. Staunch character. And after the story blows over, I don't know if we'll be seeing her again. It wouldn't surprise me, now that she's had a taste of it, and hopefully she's got paid handsomely for some of these confirmation revelations. Hopefully she has. She deserves it for what Harry put her through. Yes, she could retreat and go back into relative anonymity, but don't be surprised, my dear. You'll see people like this that had no claim to fame before, but pop up in a public scandal, and suddenly they're invited onto, I don't know, I'm a Celebrity, Get Me Out of Here, or Big Brother. I can't think of the other things that are around it, but you do see them pop up out of the blue. And although I don't think it would be her natural inclination to go for that, now her appetite could be whetted, and she might get a bit of a taste for it and think, the floodgates are now opened, and I'm going to make hay while the sun shines. I wouldn't blame her a bit. I would encourage her to do it, Sasha dear. If you're watching, do it. Because she's so likeable, she's such a good girl, she's got her head screwed on, that I don't see the infamy getting on top of her, ruining her life. And she's established a great life with a husband that loves her, and she's a good girl, so I can't see it getting on top of her. I think she'd handle it well, especially if she's well advised. I would say go for it, my love. But she probably, she might want to just draw a close after this chapter. But that's the thing, it could be the gift that keeps on giving, and there will be interest there as long as she exists, which is why she had to speak. The Queen Consort paid a visit to Storm, the family centre, for its 19th anniversary. It supports people affected by domestic violence and offers services to young and older people within the community. She met supporters and domestic abuse survivors. Some really beautiful photographs taken there. And this charity started out helping 4 women, just 4 of them, and it's grown from there, from strength to strength. And over the last few years since it began, it's supported 3,000 women, more than 3,000 women, and 1,000 young people. And you can see there on her wrist sporting a bracelet sort of thing by Van Cleef. We spoke about Diana's favourite perfume first by Van Cleef and Arpels. Well, as we spoke of, they offer fine jewellery, and that is their logo or their emblem, that sort of 4-pronged affair. And Camilla is a great fan of it. No, not because she was emulating Diana, my dear, because most families with fine breeding you'll be acquainted with that brand, and you'll see her wear a lot of it, actually. She has some beautiful jewellery by them. And something heartwarming to round off. Jacqueline Griffiths. Thank you for your comment, my dear. She says, my brother is receiving his OBE at the end of February. He was so happy it was signed by our late Queen. He was on the birthday honours list. My brother was co-founder of the Terence Higgins Trust, together with Terry's partner, Rupert. As a family, we're all so proud of him, and he gets the recognition he deserves. He lost a lot of his friends who died. He lost count. All died of AIDS. It was a tough time in 1980s UK, if you were gay. God bless Princess Diana for showing the world that you can touch someone with AIDS without fear of catching it. Yes, that was an excellent moment, was it, my dear? As many people have pointed out, Princess Margaret was very active within the gay community. That sounds strangely comical. You know, she was waltzing around the gay bars and having a fabulous time. But nothing takes away from that moment with Diana, does it? As you say, my dear, where she made a very public gesture of touching. I digress, excuse me. God bless Princess Diana for showing the world you can touch someone with AIDS without fear of catching it. Times were very difficult then. My brother made leaflets about HIV and AIDS, educating about safe sex, etc. Going around all the gay pubs and clubs. That's how it began. We are so very proud of him. And so, Jacqueline, my dear, I presume you are talking about Martin Butler. I presume he's your brother, if it's not Rupert, the other co-founder of the Terence Higgins Trust. But what a marvellous legacy, because we've all heard of the Terence Higgins Trust and the wonderful work that's done over decades on behalf of people living with HIV or with AIDS. And how fabulous to hear from you, how fabulous to know that he is being honoured by the late Queen in her final birthday honours list. You must be so proud. What a joyous moment for you. And I will be watching with a keen interest, as I'm sure many of my basketeers will do towards the end of February. I'm sure we'll flash up a photo too when that happens. So congratulations to your dear brother. And what a nice note to end on. Nice to have a head of state in a monarchy that cherishes and values these people that uphold goodness within the nation, isn't it? And do their bit for helping others, be it via charity, via volunteering, in healthcare, all the unsung professions, as well as a smattering and a glittering of celebrities, as we saw last week. You know, Bonnie Tyler, Stella McCartney. You know, you need a touch of glamour at these events as well, for people recognised in arts and music and all this kind of thing, as well as the more humanitarian efforts. So it's a tradition that I hope never dies. I love the investitures, the cream of the crop, and I loved hanging out with you today. So thank you for joining me. I hope you've got a lovely weekend bubbling away, and if not, well, make it a lovely weekend, my dear. Read a nice book or enjoy a nice crumpet. It's the small pleasures that give real pleasure, my dear. So look for the small pleasures in life. No, don't worry about the great big grand ones. They'll come to you or not, my dear. But it's the small pleasures. Small pleasures, who could deny us these? Gin toddies, large measures, no skimping if you please. It's a fine life, my dears. When it's not a complete disaster, it's a fine life. So lap it up, channel the royal spirit, and I bid you good day. Toodle pip.